Well, good morning. It is Monday, and we are looking at Proverbs 14. Again, if you're just maybe joining us, you just found the Proverbs, I would encourage you to look at Proverbs 10, where we discuss all the different kinds of Proverbs. But for right now, we're going to jump right in, and we're going to look at two verses this morning. One that is not as well known, and then one that is a fairly well known proverb, and we just want to talk about it for a moment. But let's first of all look at verse 9. Fools mock at the guilt offering, but the upright enjoy acceptance. Here we see the two differing people once again. We have the upright or the wise, and we have the fool or the simple. And notice that fools mock at the guilt offering. You generally mock at something that you think is ridiculous, something that is stupid, something you think you do not need. And that's what a fool does. But notice that a fool mocks at the guilt offering. If you read Leviticus 5, it speaks a lot of the guilt offering that is brought before the Lord, because guilt has been incurred upon the person who has done something wrong. Sometime intentionally, sometime unintentionally, but nevertheless, there is guilt. And when guilt is done, judgment has to come down. And a fool thinks, I can get away with it. I don't need someone or something in the Old Testament here to take my place, but rather I can keep trudging on. And I could just laugh about this. Ha ha, look at this sin that I did. I defrauded my neighbor. I lied. I stole his animal, or I did whatever, and I got away with it. No, you didn't, because God is ultimately going to judge. And we see the fool who mocks at that. It says, I don't need this. Ultimately, we see that all around in our own country. People who mock God and think they don't need God. They don't need their guilt atoned for or covered. They are fine in and of themselves. But rather, we see the upright. This means the righteous one, the one who makes atonement. These people enjoy acceptance. Now, this is really, really important, because what does the guilt offering do? It brings about an acceptance. Remember that even back with Cain and Abel, and how God accepted Abel's sacrifice and rejected Cain's. Cain brought his own of his own, what he thought he could do, and God rejected that. Abel brought the blood sacrifice that God had required, and he was accepted. Fellowship was there. There was an acceptance, and there was a reconciliation that was brought about, because the thing that was against them is no longer against. There's nothing between them anymore. Now, the good news is that we don't do this with animals anymore, because Jesus Christ is the perfect sacrifice. He is the perfect guilt offering atonement, who has come and died once for all of his people. And those who find their refuge in him, their guilt offering in him, enjoy acceptance with God. And so he is no longer a judge, but rather he is now my Father, because I have been reconciled. And so fools mock at this, but we enjoy acceptance with God because of Jesus Christ. Next, let's look at another one found in verse 34. It says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And so, very simply put, when you look at the nations of the world, when you look even in our own nation, what do people prop up as a good nation, as a solid nation? They prop it up as one that has a strong military. He who has the most weapons, the biggest army, these are the ones who will win. We look at the wealth of a country? How much money do they have? How much GDP are they putting out? All of these kinds of things. Economic status and ease of life, the comforts that we have and that we enjoy, the overall marketplace and the jobs that people have. When we look at all of these things, we say, are we a prosperous and secure nation? But notice what he says, that righteousness exalts a nation. It is righteousness, people that live in a righteous way before God, that they follow God's ways, that they love God's ways, that they want to obey God because Jesus has been their righteousness. Jesus is their righteousness through the gospel, that it is something where the gospel is proclaimed and loved. And so this is what exalts a nation, that when there is righteousness abounding, honestly, we have a difficult time having righteousness even in the church. I don't necessarily mean our church, but I just mean the church universal. It's hard just to have righteousness there, let alone in secular society. And so we see we need to strive to have righteousness. When righteousness is there, we have righteous leaders and we have good justice. When we don't, we have corrupt leaders and injustice and all sorts of turmoil because of these things. It really is a trickle-down effect. And so this is what we need to pray for. This is what we need to be an example of. And this is what we need to be doing, is proclaiming Jesus as our true righteousness. Righteousness doesn't come about because we have good leaders, moral leaders even, but rather from the proclamation of the gospel. The gospel changes people's hearts, and that's where true righteousness comes from, because true righteousness comes through Christ, and it is only there that we can have a people, a nation that exalts the Lord. Notice that it says sin is a reproach to any people. God judged Israel, did he not? He judged Israel when they sinned. And, any nation is bound to have the same thing happen to them when they sin. So as a people, we need to be careful about this and pray that we would indeed have a nation where it is understood we are righteous, and pray for this, that God would have mercy on us and would turn us back to him. Well, these are some things to pray about, to seek to be examples of, and to do our best in these difficult times of proclaiming the gospel in various ways and using our influence as salt and light for the greatness of who God is and for his glory. Well, we look forward to seeing you next time as we look into Proverbs 15. May the Lord richly bless you.